Happy Hump Day, and welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Happy to be with you on a show that is brought to you today and every day by our friends over at Big Willie's, 1717 South Main. If you weren't in Vegas last night for Utah Mammoth, first ever franchise playoff victory. How about that for a milestone? If you weren't there in Vegas, hopefully you were at Big Willie's, participating in the food specials, the drink specials, and perhaps most importantly, the autographed gear giveaways that are going on throughout the playoffs from the Big Willie's crew. Patrick and Michelle know exactly what this playoff is about, how meaningful it is to our state, and they're rolling out the red carpet for everybody during these playoffs. 1717 South Main, tell them OC sent you at Big Willie's. What a night for hockey fans in the state of Utah. Look, being in the playoffs, wonderful, cool to see. We already crossed that threshold. That milestone was achieved in Game 1 in the Las Vegas T-Mobile Arena, the not-so-friendly confines of the fortress down there. But then that third period in the first game, didn't look great. Got bullied around a little bit. And the question I was asking, the question you were probably asking, the question we were trying to get to the bottom of with Tom Callahan and others was, what's the response going to look like? How are you going to make good on this opportunity in these Stanley Cup playoffs? And it's a 7-game series, and there's plenty of hockey left to play. And as is always the case in 7-game series, you can't judge the entire product by, a 20-minute period or a 15-minute quarter or whatever. And the response, look, Bear Tournier has been kind of up and down this year in terms of his popularity with the fan base. I think right now you should be feeling really good about what your coach is doing, what the leadership on this team is doing, because that response in Game 2 was absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, yes, because it's a win. 3-2 victory for your Utah Mammoth for the first ever franchise victory in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But more than just the fact that you figured out a way to win was that you reversed some of the conversation that was already starting to take root about the physicality, about the size difference, about the, hey, are you really built for playoff hockey? Are you too speed-based? Is it too finesse-based? With the Utah Mammoth, they got Tuna back in the lineup, right? I think that's more of a health thing for McBain than anything else. Brandon Tanev, obviously, he probably heard our discussion, or somebody sent him a clip. You can find them, by the way, on the ESPN 700 app or at ESPN700sports.com. That you're supposed to be one of those guys, a cantankerous little honey badger skating around on the ice. Let's, get under some people's skin. Let's lay some hits down. Let's do this thing. You saw him haranguing and harassing and causing more problems in Game 2 than he certainly did in Game 1. And while there were a couple of lapses, especially on the Barbashev 3-on-1 goal, yikes, you also had a penalty kill, which has been problematic as of late. I think coming into the game, they were 13 of the last 21 penalties killed. And that penalty, end of the first period, most of the penalty kill was actually conducted in the early second period when you opened the second period. Vegas didn't get a shot off during their own power play. Let me repeat that. Las Vegas not able to generate any offense during a power play because of, what did we talk about? The effort of this Utah Mammoth team on that penalty kill. And yet it helps that Kerfoot wasn't the guy who sustained the penalty. But in any case, the Utah Mammoth with a successful steal of Game 2 down there in Vegas. And it changes the calculus in the series. It changes the ticket prices on the 2 playoff games that are here in town. It changes your outlook potentially on how far you can make it in these Western Conference playoffs. Most importantly, You get the monkey off the franchise back of knowing that, all right, not only can we make it to the playoffs, we can win games in the playoffs. Now let's turn our focus to winning a series in these playoffs. And of course, that the team already has that belief, and they came into the month of April, really February and March, with all of this in mind. We're going to check in with Adrian Denny between the pipes today. And even though I would like to spend the entire show talking about the ins and outs of this Mammoth Tusks up, baby, victory, there's a lot of other things going on right now. And here in the state of Utah, what has been for most people a secondary or tertiary or fourth place type sport is taking center stage tonight down in Sandy. Leo Messi's in town. As far as sports legends go, there are very few people that belong higher on the Mount Rushmore of like international sports legends than Leo Messi. He is an icon of all icons. Now, MLS soccer is still a growth sport in the state of Utah, in the United States of America. I think the franchise they're off to a great start right now. RSL is. They're headed in the right direction, hopefully, with this young core of talent. That's its own conversation that we will have with Jason Kreis, the president of RSL Soccer and Utah Royals Soccer, and Jay Nolly. So we're going to double up in the noon hour on some soccer talk. Jason Kreis and Jay Nolly both back-to-back, 12 and 12:30. Then we'll go between the pipes with Adrian Denny at 1 o'clock. Ryan Fowler is going to swing by in about 20 minutes to talk NFL draft because, of course, that is tomorrow. And now you're getting more conversation at the top of this draft about, there are actually teams like maybe the Kansas City Chiefs sitting at number 9 who are a little bit more offensive line and maybe tackle needy than people have been talking about. Everyone's been getting really excited about these edge rushers. They've been getting excited about the wide receiver class at the top. It's this sort of foregone conclusion that Fernando Mendoza is going to be off the board number 1, and then quarterbacks are going to not hear their names called for perhaps the rest of the first round or at least late into the first round. And that brings in the conversation, where is Spencer Fano? We started this draft process with him winning the Outland Trophy, being a unanimous All-American, and the voters saying this is the best offensive lineman in the country. Didn't give up a sack this year. Neither did Caleb Lomu, by the way. Graded out incredibly high no matter which scouting service or which Pro Football Focus or which metric you like the best. Graded out exceptionally well. Had a wonderfully athletic combine. And the conversation began with him being tackle number 1 or tackle number 2. And now it's tackle number 1 or tackle number 2 or tackle number 3 or maybe even tackle number 4, depending on how much you like the competition, how much you like Mauingoa and how much you like the kid from LSU and how much you like some of these other guys, Caden Proctor. And, of course, is he even a tackle at the NFL level? Is he going to be a swing tackle? Is he going to be a career right tackle? Is he someone you can have play at left tackle? Is he going to be a guard? At the combine, they had him taking center reps. I don't think anyone in Utah doubts that Spencer Fano is going to have a long and fruitful career in the NFL, regardless of position, but where he is viewed by individual franchises now, not by the NFL scouting community as a whole, because that basically goes away tomorrow. All that conversation, and by the way, it's continuing today. You're seeing it with Adam Schefter and Mel Kiper and Field Yates and every draftnik that's out there. And we're going to have Ryan Fowler on here in just a little bit. And everyone's got their opinions, and they formed their kind of big boards. And those things all go out the window tomorrow, because what happens is one team likes you or two teams like you, and it becomes a conversation about where your value is for that team. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and all you need is for someone someone in that first round to behold your beauty as such a thing they cannot live without. I've got high hopes right now that my San Francisco 49ers have fallen in love with Caleb Lomu and his future. I would like to see that. Became a big fan of him in a Utah uniform over the last couple of years. It'd be lovely to continue that in San Francisco. I'm not going to lie, it's weird when one of your favorite players on your favorite pro team is a hardcore Coug. Fred Warner he waves that BYU flag as much as anyone else does as the best linebacker in the league on my favorite team, playing my favorite position. It's weird. It's a little bit weird. I'd like to place some of that fan enthusiasm and affection on at least a former Ute. When it was Mitch Wishnowsky as the best former Ute on the 49ers roster, again, we love the punters from down unders, but still not the same. So we got a loaded up show for you today. Draft talk, Messi talk, hockey talk, football talk, of course, because football is year-round here on ESPN 700. There is no off-season, and we are officially your home of football here in the state of Utah.
I think it's been made clear that we're the ones you want to listen to that way. But, yeah, let's get messy today.
How long have you been waiting to say that? How excited were you to say that?
Just so excited.
Do you know what the get-in price for Inter Miami at Real Salt Lake is? Actually, first, the next home game is Sunday. Real Salt Lake. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. The next home game is May 2nd. So next Saturday. Portland Timbers at Real Salt Lake. What do you think the get-in price is for a May 2nd, Saturday afternoon, springtime? I'm sure the weather will be lovely game against the Portland Timbers down there.
Western Conference rival.
Yeah.
Portland Timbers usually have a pretty good team up there. I'm going to say $15.
31. Okay?
31, okay.
You're selling it short.
I'm sorry.
$31 get-in price.
How about double that, you jerk? Yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, now tonight, 7:30 p.m., and nobody can control the weather, but it appears like it might be a bit cool and blustery, potentially. Inter Miami and Leo Messi at America First Field in Sandy, God's country, Real Salt Lake. The get-in price, according to SeatGeek.com. What do you think that is, James, today, right now?
$200.
You are way off.
$700.
It's $503.
Okay. $502. Oh, okay.
Nope. Price is Right rules would make that your best bid, but you can't do the elimination thing. I got a poll question up for you. I've got a couple of ticket and interest-related poll questions up right now. You can always text me instead at 877-353-0700. I love when you vote on the polls at Real OC Sports. Would you rather spend big money on a sports ticket, like we're seeing people do potentially tonight, to see a legendary athlete, or would you rather spend that money on a concert ticket to go see a legendary musical act? All right, I'm asking you effectively, would you rather see Taylor Swift or Leo Messi? Are you going to spend your hard-earned cash to go to the next Eras Tour, or are you going to spend that hard-earned cash to see Leo Messi, who, let's be honest, he's going to be either like this World Cup is probably kind of the end of his major international competitions, right? And then however long he stays in MLS soccer after that.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the LeBron realm of things where it's like where for the past 5 years we've been saying this could be the last year for LeBron. That's where we are with Lionel Messi. Is like any year could be the last year. So especially in World Cup, we thought last World Cup, the Qatar one in 2022 was his last World Cup. He finally wins it for Argentina, but it turns out might play this year. I don't know if there's been an update on that, but yeah, certainly an international competition. He's probably done, if not this being his last one.
So your opportunities to see Leo Messi play live are becoming a lot more rare. Now, LeBron James became a rare commodity specifically here in Utah, but there's a lot of people, when LeBron makes his intentions clear, they're going to be part of that farewell tour. Everyone's going to be like, I got to get there and see him one last time.
Got to do what we did here when Kobe had his farewell tour and pretend we liked him, give him the standing O.
It's actually one of the most...
It was nauseating back
It's
then.
one of the most obnoxious. And by the way, it's going to be a little obnoxious if you're an RSL hardcore tonight, like a real hardcore fan.
Supporters, in a supporters group on that end of the field behind the goal
in
there.
The riot,
yeah,
you're going to be like, if you're pounding drums every game and you got the streamers and the banners and all that kind of thing, you're probably going to be like, why are we filling this place, extra bleachers, $500 tickets for somebody who's even not one of our own? I get it.
For the enemy.
For the enemy. I am with you to some degree on that sentiment. But we all have to acknowledge that there is something, like, if you could go back, if you could get in your time machine and you could go back and say, man, I really would like to see Wayne Gretzky play some live hockey, you would. You would do it, knowing now that there's not been someone since him that has been him. Hindsight's always 20/20. I think even as hated and as obnoxious as Michael Jordan was, the thorn in the side that Michael Jordan proved to be for your greatest ever Utah Jazz teams, I think a lot of people would go back to at least Bulls Michael Jordan, maybe not Wizards Michael Jordan, but would love the opportunity to go back and be like, let's watch MJ play. And then you get back in your time machine and you fast forward and you say, okay, last night I went and saw Jordan play in his prime, and now I'm going to see LeBron play, and I'm going to make a real cogent argument about who my greatest of all time is based on more of a side-to-side comparison.
Yeah. I mean, why haven't we just done that? That would end the GOAT debate that we keep going on here. To be fair, if you're a Jazz fan and the game's here in Salt Lake City, the Jazz probably beat Wizards Jordan.
Well, I hope so.
So I mean, if you're a Jazz fan, want to see Jordan play in his prime in Salt Lake City, you probably would prefer the Wizards one.
And look, some people are not go to live sporting event people. Some people are like, I would rather just watch it at home, and that's totally fine. You're going to get elite television production in most broadcasts these days. You're going to get a unique perspective during halftime, especially, or between periods if we're talking hockey. There's a lot of reasons why it's more fun, or not more fun, but equally satisfying to watch a game at home. But I don't think that the core memory thing falls into place quite as successfully unless you're butt in the stands, unless you're down there maybe suffering through some cold, maybe sitting in some rain, hopefully not. But as long as you're dressed properly, that just kind of adds itself to the memory. Leo Messi is selling out the place tonight at 15 times the normal price point, because people want to go and they want to see, they want to breathe the same oxygen as greatness. We have this very human fascination with the icon, the mega celebrity, the star that is darn near, it's the closest you can get to like non-sacrilegious immortality, right? Leo Messi will be cast in bronze. He will go down in history. He's on the sports Mount Rushmore, and that might be across all sports. And you get a chance to go down to little old Sandy and see him tonight, as long as you're willing to fork out some fat dough.
Or, yeah, if you already forked that out a long time ago. They started advertising this a year ago, remember, OC?
Oh, yes. Now, let me ask you this, okay? You can get the cheapest seat in the stadium for $500, or you can get like a really, really good seat for $1,200. Like, I'm talking like front-ish row, like front few rows.
I mean, if we're obviously assuming it's not going to break the bank for you either way.
Well, look, don't be responsible. Don't be one of these people who's just like, the kids don't need to eat. I don't need to pay the mortgage.
Messi's here.
Let the car get repossessed, honey. I got to see Leo Messi. We're not doing that.
You can watch on Apple TV Plus if that's the case. No, I think $700 more and it's a significantly better seat. I mean, I might fork over the extra $700.
Okay, so section 36, row A. You are right there. You are the front row above the field, effectively. The only thing in front of you is like the VIP loge. You could get that for $1,140. Now, that's a massive ticket price.
Yes.
But it's not like when you look at Super Bowl tickets, if you want to sit front row 50-yard line, it's a mortgage payment. It's something ridiculous. It's like
it's in the tens of thousands,
it's
right?
More usually. It's usually like you're getting into like six figures potentially for those, or at least high five figures. And the get-in price, I've done this with the last two 49er Super Bowls. It's like, can I justify a crappy seat for $5 or $6,000? And the answer for me is no. But I couldn't even think about the good seat. The good seat is just like, that's unattainable. That is for the people who are flying in on private jets. Those are the tech company owners. Those are the VIPs. Those are the professional
guys with names
athletes
on the buildings on the hill.
Those are people who don't even worry about their tax bracket because the taxes you pay are a rounding error, okay? That's a different level of luxury. Not the case, though, at America First Field tonight.
Yeah, to be clear, neither of those prices are something that I can afford right now.
Well,
for this sort of thing.
You got a family, you got a young child, you got a regular job.
But if I could, I think I'd buy the more expensive seat that's basically right on the field. For that price, because it's not purely about the money there. It's about what seat you're getting and what kind of added experience you'll get for just about double the price of just getting into the stadium.
Okay, now I told you I complained yesterday on air about how my Twitter polls are just now not getting any activity. I must be in like Twitter prison or something. I need to get back on people's algorithms. But
you maybe pay for it. You get a little boost there.
I don't know if it's worth my $9 a month or whatever it is. But this, I think, is a much more interesting question, at least for me, and I want you to answer it, James. Sports versus concert. Right now, everyone loves sports. Okay. You get to go to one of these things and only one. So if you're getting tickets, you're attending live, the one, it means you cannot go to the other two. Which are you choosing? The home playoff debut of the Utah Mammoth on Friday. Leo Messi in Sandy tonight, which is the most expensive ticket of these, or Utah BYU game coming up this year. Messi is probably never coming back here again. There is going to be a Utah BYU game every year for the foreseeable future until Utah gets invited to the Big Ten and we go through that whole thing again. Mammoth playoffs, I think they're going to be part of the playoffs for the next several years. However, never again will you be able to attend the very first home playoff game in franchise history. Never again will you be able to grab that T-shirt off the back of the seat or that towel, that commemorative towel that shows exactly that, the first ever. Like, James, you and I were both at the first game in franchise history. We have the shirt. Right?
Got the towel right behind you right there.
Got the towel, got the shirt, got the commemorative puck. In fact, I tried to get greedy and grab an extra puck and got run down by a security guy. My bad.
You got put up against the wall, almost cuffed, right?
They got physically accosted by a middle-aged man.
You're like, hold on, I'm sorry.
I was like, dude, there are literally 1,000 pucks on that table. And I grabbed 2, and my wife, who was in attendance with me, is right there. Like, can you chill? Anyway, it's neither here nor there.
Not enough of these pucks.
So one of these two of these 3 things are once in a lifetime, literally. Never again. Now, you could always go on Monday, and you're still at a Mammoth playoff game in their first playoff series. You could go next year. Maybe they get a little bit further. You could go to the first Stanley Cup final playoff game that the Utah Mammoth get into at some point.
That's a future poll, though. That's not this
That's
poll.
the future. So, Messi and Sandy tonight, Mammoth in the playoffs on Friday for the home opener, or the home playoff opener, or the Utah BYU game, which is every year the best event on the Utah sporting calendar. Which one you choosing? It's a free ticket. You don't have to worry about the cost.
Okay. I was gonna say, is it $500 get in?
No, you don't.
No, and I understand objectively the answer should probably be Messi, but I didn't grow up a soccer fan. I'm still not a big soccer fan. I like watching U.S. men's national team and the World Cup, but that's about it, right? Very casually that way. So for me, it's Mammoth playoffs, first playoff game. And it might just be biased because it's happening right now, but Messi's happening right now too, and I'd still pick that.
Okay, we got a couple interesting text messages. 877-353-0700. Gus says, as a diehard hockey fan and a Utah alum, Messi game takes top billing, then the first Mammoth game, then the rivalry game. Darren, our resident BYU fan, this one is easy for me. I'm going to the hockey game on Friday. I think it is going to be absolute bedlam in the Delta. I think the atmosphere on Friday, and I know I'm prone to hyperbole on this show, I think the atmosphere at the Mammoth game on Friday is going to be singular and unique, and we will never have seen that exact energy in the Delta Center ever. I really mean that. And I'm not trying to tell you it's going to be better than like NBA Finals when Karl Malone and John Stockton were battling it out with those Bulls. The building was legendary at that time. It was deafening. It was an intimidating palace of destruction for opposing teams. But the hockey fan energy, the hockey culture is different. The way that people have really jumped on this bandwagon, but it is still kind of a new thing for the vast majority of the fan base, whereas basketball was not, right? When the Jazz were playing NBA Finals basketball, your fan base was well established. They knew the rules. They knew the players. They knew the thing. I think we're going to get just sort of like a strange Rumspringa frenzy happening at the Delta Center on Friday night where people are just cutting loose, man. Where they're just like, I kind of know what I'm watching. I'm really excited. This is the playoffs. The players are fighting. We're fighting. I see somebody in a Vegas sweater. I'm going to say mean things to them about their gambling and drug habits. And it's just going to, I think it's going to be a truly singular experience, and I cannot wait for it. And I say that based on what happened the first time the Mammoth skated on home ice ever. James, you were there. It was a win against a kind of crappy Chicago Blackhawks team. At least a team with great history, but kind of a crappy actual team. And it felt like a Super Bowl. It felt like a Holy War win. It felt like the Utah Jazz, like Michael Jordan didn't push off. It felt like something, like the beginning of something. It was transcendent almost. The way that the swell in that building for game one at home. No playoff implication, no championship run started. Just like, hey, look what we got. We got hockey now. And it's going to be the same because we're coming back 1-1 in a wide open series, in a very winnable now series. It already was winnable, but feels even more so. I'm overselling it to myself. I'm going to do my best to be there. I've told you the scheduling issue, but man, it's going to be amazing.
Your family, you got family and friends that'll be there in your place if you're not able to make it.
Just FaceTime me.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're wrong about it, though. I don't think you're wrong about that atmosphere. I think that a couple of things. The last finals for the Jazz was now basically 30 years ago.
30 years ago.
That was long enough that many of the people who were around may have forgotten what it was like, or a lot of the details of what it was like, or they weren't even born.
Yeah, a lot of
right?
the people, and even if you were born, right, you don't actually, in my opinion, you don't actually create the hardcore sports memories until you get into like at least 9, 10, 11, and that's early.
Yeah, see, I was the exception. I was an exception with that because the 98 finals in particular, those playoffs, but the finals in particular was my first core sports memory, and I was 6.
Okay, so like,
but yeah,
I got a 6-year-old
disagree.
right now. Like my 6-year-old, I could take her to the craziest like BYU Utah game and put her on the field with me, and she's just gonna be like, "Wow, that was fun," and then just like dump it out of her mind probably the next day. We don't have this frenzied professional sports playoff atmosphere as like a part of our sports culture recently.
Yeah. And so I think it's long enough that a lot of people forgot and many people weren't born, right? And so it's as if this is the biggest postseason game these fans have ever had. Even Jazz fans, you had the Western Conference Final.
With respect to Mehmet and D-Will and those guys, like it just.
You had that run. You had that 1 year they make it to Western Conference Finals. Other than that, they've been losing in the first or second round or not making the playoffs. The inaugural Stanley Cup playoff game, even though it's a first-round game, is going to be a bigger deal than that, especially if they come out with a win and then they end up winning this series.
This coming in from 1649. As someone who's an RSL season ticket holder and will be at the game tonight, the thing nobody's saying is that Messi may not even play tonight. He played the full 90 on Saturday. Bad weather, he may just sit it out. That's what your $500 might get you. Okay, so
I think he's playing.
He's going to play. I would be shocked and quite frankly appalled if Messi didn't at least play like a half. That's a different conversation, and maybe one that we can have with Jason Christ and Jay Nolly when they join us. But I'm way over time here, getting everyone pumped up for things that may or may not be as awesome as I think they're going to be. Ryan Fowler, NFL draft analyst, joins us next to talk about, you guessed it, tomorrow's first round. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in Ryan Fowler, NFL Draft Insider. A day ahead of the first round in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Ryan Fowler, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Doing well, Sean. Always appreciate you having me on, man. Best time of the year.
Best time of the year indeed, especially if you are a draft junkie. This one in Pittsburgh, I love the idea that the NFL likes to tour this thing around now. Will the Pittsburgh flavor be unique in any way?
Well, I think as you look at as far as a passionate football city, I don't think there's any question that Pittsburgh obviously is a town that's had a lot of success in the decades that Steelers have been in town. So I think there's going to be tons of fans. Will we have the crowd that we had maybe in Detroit a couple years ago where there was upwards of 1 million people? We'll see what happens. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun this weekend.
So the foregone conclusion with the number one pick is that Fernando Mendoza will be selected and become a franchise guy for the Raiders. How much of that do you believe in? Are you buying or selling on somebody like Fernando Mendoza, who obviously has been incredibly impressive at Indiana? I followed him even when he was in the Bay Area because I was working in the Pac-12 country at that time. When he becomes an NFL player and the aw shucks Boy Scout type thing is not, maybe as well received by a particular fan base or in the locker room, or is not as easy to pull off because you're losing a bunch instead of dominating your way through college football. Do you think it's going to work out for Fernando Mendoza?
Yeah, I think he definitely is an interesting individual, right? Interesting young man. I wish the absolute best for him, but as you said, the Boy Scout type of character thing with him, it's a little corny at times, I think. That may not work inside an NFL locker room, specifically if it does go bad quickly. However, Sean, I will say that when looking at Vegas and looking at any team across football that's searched for quarterbacks since the dawn age of football, is either you got a guy or you're looking for a guy. And I think when you look at Vegas, when you look at Brock Bowers, you look at Ashton Genty, and now adding Mendoza, you have Kirk Cousins in the building, you have a Tom Brady to lean on as far as just getting some tips and tricks here along the trade. I think Fernando Mendoza at his ceiling is probably a top 15 quarterback in football. For me, he's a mid first round grade for me. He's not a guy in a lot of different classes that I would have at the number one bona fide overall selection. But again, Vegas wants their guy. Clint Kubiak's now in the building. They're going to get the ball out of his hands quickly. Fernando Mendoza is tough as nails. Just watching his tape over the middle of the field, the processing, the arm talent's very average, but he's just someone that gets it under center. And I think that's going to translate into an offense where there are some decent correlating surroundings right now. I just don't think right now, Sean, he's going to be a guy that's going to be ever a top 5 to 7 quarterback in the NFL, which teams obviously look for potentially if you're drafting a guy number one overall.
What I do like, or I think I'm going to like, we'll see how the draft actually plays out, is that, there's a lot of questions almost immediately after that number one spot. And, we're seeing, is it Arvell Reese or David Bailey? And where does Jeremiah Love go? Because he's best player available on a lot of people's boards, but you can't spend number 2 or even maybe number 4 on a running back, but maybe you should. I love these conversations in the modern NFL. So I turn it over to you. Once we get past number 1, where do we see a run? What position gets valued in the first round? Are we getting surprises and trades? And is this going to be kind of a free-for-all?
I think it is. And the draft does start at 2 with New York. I do think it is one of Reese or Bailey. I know that's not breaking any news there, but I would be remiss if I didn't say, hey, look, we're 24 hours from this thing. I'm not really sure exactly where they're going to go. But right now, I do think you're going to see some trades. I think there's some teams in the top 10 that would like to trade out, specifically when you look at Cleveland at 6. You look at Washington at 7, New Orleans at 8, maybe adding some more capital. But you got to have 2 to tango, right? You got to have some teams to come up. But as of right now, there's just not a lot of teams looking to come up. I think there's going to be a run on the tackles in that 10 to 15 range where you could see a guy, like a Spencer Fano come off the board as potentially top guy in this class. The herniated disc information with CeCe Noah from Miami is making its way around teams, and that absolutely will, I expect it to affect his stock a little bit. I don't expect him to be the guy right now to go at 3 to the Arizona Cardinals if they, in fact, stay there. So I think it's going to be an active, fast, heavy first round, and there are going to be some moves. And I think as far as some names, even working into the back end of round 1 that you would expect to maybe go in the 40s or 50s, like a Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech, Chase Pasantis from Texas A&M, maybe a couple of those guys even sneak into the back end of round 1. I think it's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow night.
There's several teams with with a couple of first-round picks or with a nice little haul of first-round and maybe second-round picks they could put together to potentially move up. And we see that happen for franchise players. We see that happen for once-in-a-lifetime quarterbacks or maybe even a once-in-a-lifetime tackle. There's not even a lot of agreement on I think you just made this point, on who the best tackle in this class is. We know that we're biased towards Spencer Fano, and he won the Outland Trophy, but some teams see him more as an interior lineman and things like that. Regarding the teams that have draft assets and draft capital tomorrow night, do we see someone package a couple of first-round picks to climb up into the top 10 potentially? Maybe the Cowboys. I know the Giants have two, but it seems like they want to use both of those two where they're at, number 5 and number 10. Yeah. Do you see upward mobility for teams that are capital heavy?
I think there's one team to keep an eye on, and you mentioned them, with the Dallas Cowboys. You know, as long as Jerry Jones is in town, he will always be about splash, and that's going to get a guy. Now, how far do they move up and who for? I think if there's two names to know there that they would like to move up and try to get, is if you see a little bit of a slide from an Arvell Reese or it's Sonny Styles. Those are really the two names floating around the Dallas Cowboys really here over the past few days. But I will say this, and just talking to teams here over the past few days or so, it's going to be very interesting, even if you have a lot of capital here on night one or even a lot of picks inside the top 100. Looking towards the 2027 draft and the talent that is expected to come out specifically in the top 50 for next year, I expect teams to be very frugal as far as trying to trade up and relinquishing capital for next year's draft, even if it's on day 1 or day 2 next year. And how does that affect night 1 tomorrow night? So that's something to keep an eye on. And also, you now have 8 minutes. You don't have 10 minutes on the clock for first-round picks. Does that 2 minutes affect anything as far as trying to iron out and finalize those deals? So I think those are just a couple things to keep an eye on there for movement up and down the board tomorrow night. But again, to answer your question, Sean, blankly, it's just really Dallas Cowboys at 12 and 20, going maybe to get their guy in a Sonny Styles or an Arvell Reese. Just how high will they have to go up? We'll see what happens.
When you see guys like Sonny Styles who have production, but then they go to the combine and that production takes a back seat to the upside, to the freak athleticism, to the, oh my gosh, I didn't know where they build the lab that creates these types of individuals. Are you a buyer on him being an elite NFL prospect the same way some of these teams might view him?
I'll say this, and then I think in his game right now, Sean, because it's a great question, I see a lot more freak athlete than outstanding football player right now. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sit here and say that I see Isaiah Simmons or I see Tyree Wilson in a different position just in recent memory. But when I watch his tape at his size with the speed and athleticism and watching that Ohio State tape, where of course they had tons of ball players everywhere, 4- and 5-star recruits at every single level of that defense, I just see a little bit more ability as far as in the first few years of his career. He'll match NFL athletes, but as a football player, a potential green dot in the middle of your defense, I want to see some more progression there as far as identifying the IQ in the middle of the field. That's why Caleb Downs potentially on that same defense to really serve that same role inside the middle of your defense, and why teams have Downs higher than a Sonny Styles. So again, more so an athlete right now for me than a really darn good football player. But I think if he could just find a decent happy medium in his game, I think he still has a Pro Bowl type of ceiling.
What's the best case for Spencer Fano, and what's maybe the worst case for Spencer Fano in your mind?
Yeah, it's really where the run's going to start on these offensive linemen. Does that start at 3? Does Arizona stay and grab a guy? Or does Cleveland really have the run at 6? Is that Fano? Is that CeCe Malinoa? Is that Monroe Freeling? Is that Caden Proctor? I think for Spencer, even if he's not the first lineman off the board, the earlier the other linemen go, the better off and higher he will go ultimately for teams trying to get their run on the Monroe Freelings and names along those lines. And even guys like Maxie Hanacho and Blake Miller, those names that will go on later on in round 1. So I think he's in a good spot. I still expect him to come off the board. He could go at 6 to Cleveland, or he could go even as far as in the late teens. Keep an eye on Baltimore, teams like as well Miami, of course, as well, or early portions of day 2. If sometimes a slip happens, which has crazy things, as we know, Sean, has happened on draft day. But I think he's in a really nice spot.
A lot of the mock drafts have gotten me in love with the idea of Caleb Lomu to the 49ers, as I'm a Niners fan, and obviously we've been following his entire career at the University of Utah. Is that a likely landing spot for Caleb Lomu?
I think it'd be a nice landing spot. I think when you look at the future for the Niners up front and the Trent Williams situation, kind of very similar to where he could also go at 23 to the Philadelphia Eagles, right? When you look at the Lane Johnson situation, I think either spot for him would be excellent. I think when you look at both schemes, specifically San Francisco, with Kyle Shanahan having just elite athletes at the position to expand your ground game, the footwork, the ability to skip and pull, get to the second level. I think at times Caleb Lomu, a little bit too much for me, got rocked back a little bit by power. I think that's something to work on. He will get bigger, faster, stronger as he continues to mature. Still a young player. That athletic profile in San Francisco is exactly why they prioritized Trent Williams years ago from Washington. I think Caleb Lomu will be a really nice fit there, whether he plays either tackle spot right away.
Every draft analyst that I talk to, I feel like you've got somebody in the back of your mind, maybe the front of your mind, that you feel is being underappreciated or you're just fascinated by for whatever reason. Who is that for Ryan Fowler?
Yeah, for me, it's a guy that I think is going to come off the board early portions of day 3, Sean, and that's Eli Heidenreich, the running back / receiver / everything for the Navy midshipmen, a guy that's one of 2 players ever in college football history to record more than 975 receiving yards and 425 more rushing yards in a single season. A guy that had 32 targets in his final 4 games for the midshipmen, again, as a running back. He's going to come in right away at 6 foot 206 with very similar athletic intangibles to when Christian McCaffrey was coming out of Stanford. I'm not comparing the player, but just from an athletic intangibles perspective and the versatility, the hands, the explosiveness, watching him at Shrine against corners and safeties. They couldn't cover him all week long. So if you're an offensive coordinator that's going to have a plan for a guy like this that played that slot back snipe Z position is what they called it at Navy, Eli Heidenreich early on portions of day 3, I expect him to outplay his draft slot very quickly.
Is this one of those situations also that he had to get like military service exemption because he's an academy guy? Does that still a thing when we talk about Army, Navy, Air Force players?
I don't think so. As of right now, there's things obviously that could be in there as far as the Naval Academy and Air Force guys like that, as you mentioned, but I'm not sure that that's actually a standard right now for these Naval Academy guys.
Okay, interesting. Well, I love that. You have now planted that seed in my mind that I'm going to be looking for where Eli Heidenreich goes. Awesome. Besides Fano, besides Lomu, there's a couple of Utah guys that are a little bit further down. There's also BYU's best players. In my case, I think Jack Kelly is a guy who's going to have a successful NFL career. I don't think he's going to make a big splash in the draft from like a high pick standpoint, but the best linebacker in the league right now is a BYU guy, in my opinion, and Fred Warner. Where do you think Jack Kelly goes?
I think somewhere on day 3. I think he's someone even talking about him last year with scouts, is a guy that had some late day 2 grades for teams. I think when you watch Jack Kelly, for folks out there listening that know BYU, they know how explosive, right, that he is. And I think the instincts pop off the screen. You just mentioned Fred Warner. I'm not going to compare Jack Kelly to Fred Warner, but if you're explosive, you have instincts, and you're consistently beating guys to the spot, you're beating guards that are pulling opposite side of the line of scrimmage, that stuff usually translates. Now, is he going to have to cut his teeth on special teams, early on in his career? Potentially. But I think those instincts and explosiveness overall are going to allow him to make a roster. And once you get a guy in the football field like that that's played a lot of ball in his career at a lot of different spots, even can flash down to edge and put his hand in the dirt if you have to, I think Jack Kelly's going to stick on a roster somewhere, likely early portions of day 3.
Ryan, I know it's a busy, busy time for you, and I appreciate you giving us a few minutes today. Enjoy the draft, and we'll chat again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks as always, Sean. Take care.
That's Ryan Fowler, NFL draft analyst over at NBC Sports. Hot Lunch is coming next. We've got Funnel Cake Festival coming this weekend at Lagoon. We're going to give away tickets for that later. Jason Christ joins us in 9 minutes. Don't go anywhere. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Guys, I got bad news. Turns out I would be a really awful professional sports owner. So I guess it's good for all of you that I am not a billionaire, because one of the first things I would want to do was become a professional sports owner. I would try to buy the San Francisco 49ers and make them the Salt Lake City 49ers, and it probably wouldn't work out well for anybody. But I know you've seen this. It's been talked about. We have not really touched on it yet. I didn't know what kind of a story he was going to grow into, but the new Portland Trailblazers owner, Tom Dundon, is being dragged because he's a cheapskate. He spent $4+ billion to acquire the Portland Trailblazers, and then immediately, like he did with the Carolina Hurricanes, by the way, he started employing a bunch of cost-cutting measures, and now that people have caught wind of this, everyone's digging up to see how deep it goes, and it goes pretty darn deep. So deep, in fact, that there are reports out there that right now the Portland Trailblazers have 2 in-arena mascots. I didn't know this. I don't really care about this, but they have 2. And apparently he's like
a trail and a blazer.
Apparently
right?
he's like, why do we need 2 of those? Because he's like, I don't want to pay. I don't want to pay 2. He's not flying two-way players out for the playoff games. He notoriously did not sign off on the idea of giving fans the free T-shirts that are often draped over the back of the seat, as we've seen tons of this with the Utah Mammoth and even with the Utah Jazz, who are nowhere near the playoffs.
Yeah, probably cost like $5 a shirt. Like, these are not high quality shirts.
I promise you, even less.
Yeah,
like they're probably anywhere from $1 to $3 a shirt, and there's 17,000 seats or whatever. This is a billionaire. We're not talking about you or I trying to fund these measures that are designed to increase the fan experience. I guess he wants people that are like employees that are traveling to not pay bag fees when they're not on the team charter and they're flying commercial. He's like, nope, I'm not going to sign off on paying your baggage fees. Like, that's a different level of cheap. I know business owners who have like 4 employees who are just like, yeah, upgrade your seat. Let's go. We're all a big family. We're in this thing together. Now, maybe that means you never become a billionaire if you're not pinching pennies aggressively. But Tom, you've made it, okay? You're a billionaire. You're rich enough that you bought the dang team. You don't have to now look for every possible line item on the balance sheet to cut costs. You've got to make yourself popular with your fan base. You have to endear yourself to your players, to your employees. And he's not doing that. And he hasn't owned the team very long. So this is already getting really ugly. And Tiago Splitter was asked about it, the Trailblazers interim coach. And he was like, I mean, it's kind of messed up to ask him that, because then he's got to rag on his boss if he wants to tell the truth. So he had to plead the fifth effectively. So I'm just going to be a professional. We're just doing our thing. But it means, like cheapskates, like myself, I guess are bad sports owners. And we will update you on all the new cost-cutting measures that are out there for the Portland Trailblazers. They're going to become like the NBA's budget team. All right, got to take a quick one. That's your hot lunch here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Reminder to all of you that the 4th annual Funnel Cake Festival is back this weekend at Lagoon. We want you to go with your family. We've got a 4-pack of tickets to give away during Topical Trivia around 1:45. They've got a bunch of different funnel cakes. You can sample them all. Saturday 10 to 7, Sunday 10 to 6. Tickets are available online right now at lagoonpark.com. The discounted price is $83.95 each plus tax. No promo code needed, but still tell them OC sent you. All right, it is messy night down in Sandy. Jason Christ, president of soccer for RSL and for the Utah Royals, joins us next to talk about one of the biggest sporting events of the year in the state of Utah. Don't go anywhere. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome to hour number 2 here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Our next guest is the first ever 100-goal scorer in Major League Soccer. He is the head coach who guided RSL to an MLS Cup back in 2009. He is the current president of soccer operations for the Claret and Cobalt. Jason Kreis, kind enough to give us a few minutes on what is already a very busy day down in Sandy. Jason, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Thanks for your time. How are you?
Thanks, Sean. Good to be here. I'm doing great. Excited for tonight.
I've been trying to figure out the right way to characterize what this night is, because obviously it's a regular season professional soccer game. You have a really good club right now, off to a great start, a lot of promise on those fronts, but also, you know, there's special bleachers in the stadium. This was announced a year ago. It's the highest get-in ticket price I've ever seen for a sporting event in the state of Utah, and a lot of that is because a global icon in Leo Messi is coming with his club. So how are you in the building characterizing and compartmentalizing what tonight is relative to a regular season game?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously two perspectives. Perspective number one is from a soccer perspective for our coaches, for our players, for our front office staff on the sporting side. This is just another game. You know, this is another opportunity for us to pick up 3 points, continue our very strong start, continue a very good home winning streak that we've started. And so it's another soccer game. But obviously from a more global and more business perspective for our club, this is a massive deal. You know, it's easy, I think, to characterize if you just say basically this is Michael Jordan coming to town 20 years ago, where we have the greatest player of all time coming into our building with the team that won MLS Cup last year. So the fans are going to be treated to, I think, a fantastic game tonight, and it's obviously an occasion that we should all celebrate and enjoy.
The home field advantage has been incredibly strong, and again, I don't want to keep hammering on the point that it's messy, but it's messy. We gotta at least acknowledge it. And there's a lot of people that are going to be in the building. They're going to be there because they want to see Messi. How will that affect the atmosphere? Do you anticipate what that might look like?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things to think about, right? I mean, we now know that he is definitely in Utah. We've seen pictures of him at the training facility down in Harriman. So, you know, the perspective is that he will play, and most likely he will start, just as he does in all of the regular season games that he is fit for. And I think in thinking about how, you know, I would expect that there will be fans in our building a lot earlier than is typical, because I would expect that everybody would want to see him on the field warming up. And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited of having a full stadium before the game kicks off. We typically have a group of fans that likes to come a little bit late. And I've always wanted them to be there early at the start of the game to impose themselves and to make the atmosphere a difficult one for our opponents. So lots of exciting things tonight to see.
When we think about the players compartmentalizing versus the business side and the fans and whatnot, I mean, I don't know what it's like to try to compete against someone that you grew up watching and probably in some ways idolizing. I know that these guys are professionals. You have some very promising young stars on this team that probably have had Messi posters on their wall. And it's not the first time some of these guys will compete against him in various places, but how is that handled by players, coaches? Because it happens for different generations with different players in soccer.
Yeah, from an idealistic point of view, you want all of our players and coaches to understand this is just another game. From a realistic perspective, I think this probably isn't just another game. This is an opportunity for all of our players to put themselves in the same field, as I said, with the greatest player of all time. And then there are also some other stellar players in Inter Miami, which, you know, our players perhaps don't often get a chance to play against the likes of and the names of some of these players on a week in and week out basis. So there will be excitement for sure. We played down in Miami 2 years ago, and what I would say is, and it was also the first game of the year, so I think that adds some part of it. But what I would say is it looked to be a very nervous team. My hope is that this team is in a different place with some different players and will handle the occasion very well.
Was there anyone in your career that you ran up against that was a rough equivalent of what we're talking about with Messi tonight?
Oh, I don't think so. If I'm honest and humble, I would say that I probably never played against anybody that I thought was one of the best in the world.
Jason Christ is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. RSL hosting Inter Miami tonight. Leo Messi is in Utah. He is expected to be there, expected to play. Why would he make the trip if he wasn't going to play? I know that we got a couple text messages about people worried about exactly that, especially with the high get-in price. Is there any management of these situations from the MLS level? Because, the league is obviously hyper aware of the economy around Leo Messi and what happens when he makes a unique trip to some of these places like he is in Utah. Does the league do anything with Miami, with Leo, to say, hey, we really need you on the field?
No, I don't think that that's implicitly said, but to be honest, I don't really know. I'm very much focused on the soccer side, not the business side, but I would have to think that Messi is aware, as is Inter Miami, as is the league, that, every time he steps on the field, that's a huge financial and business windfall for the league. So I would have to think there's some implicit conversations there, implicit, what the right word is, nudging perhaps. But, at the end of the day, this is professional sports and he is a human being. So, he isn't going to be healthy for every single game. But I do get the feeling just by watching what he's done the 2 years he's been here, this guy doesn't sit out games. So it's not like he's a guy that's saying, hey, I'm just going to rest that game because I need to save myself for the next one. He seems to put himself out there every single time he's available.
Let's talk about your squad. Off to a great start, as we have mentioned a couple of times, 5-1-1 on the season, unbeaten in the last 6. To what do you attribute the hot start, if you can pinpoint something?
I think a couple things. In the off season, we were very critical of ourselves and evaluated which particular areas we needed to get better at, which led us to coming up with a new tactical formation for our team, which then further led us to a very specific recruitment process. And so I think we really checked those 3 boxes pretty well. In particular, what I would shout out is I think the recruitment that we've done in this winter to bring in the likes of Giavogi and Sanabria, Sergi Solans, Stein Spearings, Lucas Engel, all of these guys have turned out to be winners. And what I would say is that's in direct contrast to, I think, what happened in a couple of windows before that. So the process has been very good, and I think we're seeing the results of some of that process.
For the novice and uneducated soccer fan, how massive an undertaking is it when you do change a formation? When you say, all right, we're going to kind of strip something down and we're going to alter the way we approach our regular run of play, especially if you have holdovers and guys on the roster that have been here, homegrown prospects that maybe have come up and expected game day to be a certain way and run through a certain system. How serious of an undertaking is that for those of us who don't really know?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to oversell this. I do think it's a challenge, but I don't think it's a massive undertaking, so to speak. I think that you have to be smart about how you do it. I feel very strongly about that because, from our perspective, we want to make those decisions based upon the most important players that we have and the players that we're trying to build around. So we would never want to go out and say we want to play this system and now we need to get all new players. So we look at it from the perspective of the Diego Lunas, the Emeka Nellies, the Justin Glads, the Rafa Cabrals, DeAndre Yedlins that are coming back from last season, those important players. What would be a better system for them going forward? And how do we address the specifics, which was how do we create more high-quality goal-scoring chances?
Speaking of high-quality goal-scoring chances, you just mentioned Sergi Solans, and he's scored in the last 3. And two goals in the last outing. So the team's hot. You could say that in the last 3 games, especially, he's even hotter. What's working for him right now?
He's a very interesting person to talk about because, we got a little bit fortunate, I have to admit, by drafting him 2 years ago. And at that point, we wanted to bring him in basically as a second team player for the Monarchs. and he said he wanted to go back and play college. So he went back, changed schools actually to UCLA, and then had just an incredible year last year. So we approached it a little bit differently this year and said, you know, it looks like there's a great opportunity for you to come in now rather than go back to school for one more year and have an opportunity to actually get minutes, because we were missing Victor Olatunji for the majority of preseason. So Sergi has come in and taken advantage of the opportunity and done an amazing job. But what's really interesting is that he has 5 goals. But if you asked him, and I'll tell you from my perspective as a former striker, he should probably have 10. So, you know, the upside is still really, really large on this guy. And what's so admirable about him from all of our perspective is not necessarily just the goals, but the defensive work that he puts in is so critical for our team's success.
Who has shouldered the load of player leadership or on-field generalship in a way that I think, you know, you were considered to be that guy, and obviously guys like Kyle Beckerman and Nick Raimondo and some of the legends of this club, when we think about the Claret and Cobalt, those are the faces and the names that we're thinking of. Who are those guys on this year's team?
I think it's the group has done a really good job of spreading it amongst a few players. And those players are Rafa Cabral, Justin Glad, DeAndre Yedlin, and Emeka and Nelly are the names that jump right out. And with the addition of a guy like Lucas Engel, who I think adds another nice dynamic of leadership. So I wouldn't say that there's one particular guy that I could point out, but I do think they're getting the job done by committee. If you forced me into it, I probably would say I would have to commend Rafa Cabral is probably the most vocal leader guy that we have out there.
Jason Kreis, our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show for another couple of minutes. It's a big night down in Sandy at America First Field. RSL hosting Inter Miami. Leo Messi in town. Tickets are available on the secondary market, but be ready to break the bank because it is a hot item, and this RSL team needs your support. They have looked really excellent so far, and a big opportunity against a good Miami team as well. Coming up in a few scant weeks, obviously, you've got the FIFA World Cup. From the RSL perspective, from the MLS perspective, and I guess from you as the president of soccer operations, how difficult a challenge is it to incorporate this massive global event right in the middle of a season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the World Cup is the most important sporting event in the world. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm frustrated by it. But truthfully, when you start off the way we are, we would love to just continue on the momentum that we've created and kind of keep rolling through this season. So it will be viewed as a challenge by us. We will be able to take the time and have players take a couple weeks off, actually get some rest, and then come back in and focus on and put the players through basically another mini preseason. We are also trying to make some decisions so that we can have some games leading back into the second half of the season for us. So what it does is it makes a little more work than what we would like, but we have to consider the benefits of what will happen from World Cup to be ultimately a positive thing for us.
In other pro sports, we talk all the time about the, things like salary cap. We talk about contract situations. We talk about, in baseball, especially the farm system. And there's been some significant proof of concept with the RSL Academy and homegrown players becoming important guys on the MLS squad. And you're in this role now, kind of overseeing all of it. Do you stay the course? Are there changes necessary down the line? How do you view, I guess, the growth of the RSL product, especially from within?
We're extremely proud of it. Extremely proud of it. What I would say is, when I came in 2 years and a couple of months ago, that was my first and primary focus, was to try to make sure that the academy, the way we were playing, the players that we were producing and developing, the identity of the whole thing was in a strict alignment with the first team and Monarchs, and was able to implement that over probably what took about 6 months to make sure that all the coaches are speaking the same language, the positional profiles are the same for all the players, And before that, a couple of years before that, when Mr. Blitzer came on as the majority owner, he and Tony Beltran, Kurt Schmidt, people like that put a big focus on trying to get that academy headed in a good direction. So I would say that currently, and I think for the next several years, we have and are going to be able to reap some massive benefits from a lot of very intentional work that was done 4 years ago, and again, sort of refocused on as I came in 2.5 years ago.
I know I already asked you a World Cup question, but this slipped my mind at the moment. Do we know what countries, what clubs are going to be using RSL facilities in order to sort of camp and prepare themselves for the World Cup here in North America?
Yeah, we do. We have two. We have South Korea that's going to come in as like a pre-World Cup. They want to get some elevation training because I think they maybe play a game or two down in Mexico City. So they're going to do like a pre-World Cup training camp with us here down in Harriman at Zebra. And then we will have Bosnia and Herzegovina. Their home base training camp will be here, but it won't be at the training facility. It'll actually be out of our stadium.
Oh, cool. Do you have
really
relationships with anyone in those, or is this going to be kind of like expanding your personal network when that happens in both cases, the Bosnia Herzegovina and then South Korea?
Yeah, I do not have relationships yet or connections yet, but do plan to try to establish some. I have an off sort of weird connection with a player from Bosnia and Herzegovina named Edvin Djeko. He was a player at Man City when I was over there for 6 months doing my implementation with City Football Group.
Are you better at coaching, playing soccer, or being in an administrative role? When you look back at all of what you've done, which one suits you best, you think?
Oh, man, I don't know. I mean, obviously being a professional player was probably the most enjoyable time of my life. Felt like you get to focus on something for very, very short amounts of time and spend a lot of time with your family. So I love that. From a coaching perspective, I love, putting a group together and leading them and trying to establish identity and culture and those sorts of things. In the role that I am now, I'm probably, still doing a lot of those things with identity, culture, alignment, and all of that. And I think from a legacy perspective, I would say that I would like to walk away from this job at some point feeling like I had a really positive influence on a large number of people. And, the greatest opportunity for that is in the exact role that I'm in now. So I just can't say anything more than I'm very, very happy with what I'm doing, and I'm extremely happy with where I'm at.
For the league itself, when you were a player in the more foundational days of MLS soccer, did you, in those days, anticipate that, at some point there would be, $500 a seat stadiums being sold out across the land for MLS soccer?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would have never never thought that a player like Lionel Messi would come here at an age that he still has a lot to give to the game, and in a competitive way. I mean, in those early years of the league, we had some global stars, but, those global stars were really quite past it from a physical perspective, and it was obvious to everyone.
When Team USA trots out for the upcoming World Cup, what are our chances? The World Cup for me is a lot like the Olympics, where for a few weeks I become a passionate expert on gymnastics and everything else in the Olympics, and so I will pretend that I'm an expert on soccer for those few weeks. But give me the real skinny on how Team USA should fare in this upcoming World Cup.
That's a difficult question, because I would have said a year and a half ago, I would have told you that I think we've got a chance to make a real big impact on this tournament at home. But now, having watched the team this past month or two, my hopes and aspirations have probably gone down significantly. But I also know that, you can have a couple of bad games that are friendlies, and that can look extremely different from when you put the team out there and there's pressure and competition and the support of all of our fans in the biggest sporting event in the world. So I'm still hopeful that our guys are going to make a mark, make it out of the group stages. And I think that we have to kick on. We have to establish a new level of expectation, which isn't just to get out of our group, but we need to start winning some of these knockout games. So I'll project that we're going to win that first knockout game as well.
Well, your word is gospel on this show. So now that's the expectation for everyone who's listening, and we will be sorely disappointed if it doesn't happen.
That's unfair pressure, but I'll take it. No problem.
Look, enjoy tonight. Enjoy the season, because obviously that's the more important thing in your world, and it's going really well so far. I know you're very busy, especially today. So, again, I very much appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
That is Jason Kreis, an icon in RSL Claret and Cobalt, current president of soccer operations. Of course, he was a player for RSL. He was a coach during those title run years and for the title, and now he's overseeing it all. And tonight, as we have talked about ad nauseum on the show, is as big a night as it gets, not only for RSL, but for sports in the state. I mean, this is way, way up there. I have the poll question out. I would like for you to go vote on it, or you can text me at 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports on Twitter. I'm going to give you a free ticket. You can go see Messi tonight in Sandy. You can go to this year's Utah BYU game, or you can be in the building at the Delta Center on Friday for the first ever home playoff game for the Utah Mammoth. But if you accept my free ticket, you don't get to go to the other ones. So you only get to go to one. Messi, Mammoth, Holy War. Which one are you choosing? 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports on Twitter. All right, we're going to stay on this because it is massive. Jay Nolly, RSL radio color analyst, is going to join us next. But a reminder that ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM has the Festival of Teas going on right now. The Utah Golf Association partners with Mountain Home Services to bring you free rounds of golf given away on the Sean O'Connell Show right here and on the Drive with Spence Checketts every day. Coming up, we've got a free round to Sun Hills. Let me see if I can find the little blurb I've got here on Sun Hills. All right, Davis County, little northern adventure for you. Beautiful views, challenging holes. Come check out what Sun Hills has to offer. Everything in the pro shop, by the way, at least 10% off, including new clubs. Some items up to 40% off. Sun Hills, you're speaking my language. All right? You can make a tee time at 801-771-4814. We're going to give away a free round of golf, and we're going to talk to Jay Nolly next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. It is Messi Day down in Sandy. RSL hosting Inter Miami. Leo Messi expected to play tonight, 7:30 first kick. America First Field is right now it's a hot ticket. If you can get your hands on one, hopefully you don't have to break the bank to do so. Maybe you can just text our next guest if you have him in the phone and see what he can do for you. Jay Nolly, RSL radio color analyst, kind enough to join us here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Jay, welcome. How are you?
Good, Sean. Good to be here too. And I will say I'm worthless in getting tickets, probably like everybody else right now.
Yeah, I was making fun of our guy Trey Fitzgerald because he sent me the link for like the media, the media credential pass, and was like, "Hey, if you want to," I was like, "I thought you were getting me free front row tickets, dude." And he said, "Maybe any other game, but not this one."
Yeah, I was just happy they approved me as well.
Before we get into any soccer, I don't know the last time we had you on the show. It's probably my first stint with ESPN 700. But if I take you back to 2004 and I say you are Indiana Hoosiers football, obviously soccer, national power, someday this is going to happen for your American football team as well. What would you have told me?
I would have said that the football team was the lowest on the totem pole of what we were focused on. You know, it was basketball school when I was there, soccer, swimming, very strong. I was a part of 2 national championships and a second place as well. I was in 4 Final Fours as well. So really strong. And it was just, it never felt the resources going that way. But, you know, the new era of NIL and hitting on the right coach changed it. Probably the most incredible 2 years I've been able to watch Indiana, especially eclipsing beating Miami in the championship.
So, I mean, be honest with me. When you're a proud alum, right, and obviously you're watching soccer and you're watching basketball because it always was a basketball school, are you just like, all right, I'll jump on this football bandwagon that we never thought was going to be a thing? Like, from your fan perspective, what is it like?
My kids think I'm the weirdest guy ever now. I mean, I've always been a proud alum like Indiana just because we're really tight-knit with the soccer community. I still get text messages probably monthly. They send updates. So you're always involved. They brought me out about a year and a half ago for the 50th anniversary, showed the new upgrades to the stadium, you know, Assembly Hall, everything they've done there. So they do such a phenomenal job with their alumni, and I think it's one of the biggest alumni bases in the country. And I think now they're starting to see the fruits of the labor of you know, more donors investing. You know, there's some very high-end donors, obviously Mark Cuban, which now has kind of helped support that team. But you know, the basketball teams had one of the best transfer portals as well. So they're one. You know, if you miss the NCAA tournament, it's kind of like what happened. So the Big Ten is just so strong, top to bottom, really. So competing in there, I just love to see that the university I went to is now on the same level of like a Michigan, Ohio State when you look across the board in sports.
Well, it's fascinating. It's awesome to see, and I'm sure it's not going to slow down anytime soon, especially if Curt Cignetti sticks around. But let's talk about what you're here to talk about. It is a massive night in Sandy at America First Field, and Leo Messi, for the non-hardcore soccer fans, he's a guy that still crosses over. We know that he's an icon. We know that he's somebody that, you know, it's kind of a treat to get to watch him and to be in the building to do it. Certainly it's a high price point, but a lot of people are ready to do it. What is it actually going to look like on the field? I mean, give me a sense of where Leo Messi is still at in this season so far. He's not the spring chicken that he once was, but we just had Jason Kreis on, and he feels like there's a lot left for Leo Messi to give the game. Give me your perspective on what kind of a soccer player you're getting to see tonight in Sandy.
Yeah, I think, you know, when little kids grasp onto soccer and you know, they want to continue it on, you know, what are the types of stars they look at? Messi's, you know, obviously up there, Ronaldo, those types of players. Messi is just different from, you know, what we traditionally grow up with, you know, the tall, the strong, you know, the physical forwards. He is just 2-3 steps ahead, so smart. What's interesting, if you just kind of watch how he plays as well too, he start-stop, kind of lingers in an area, and then all of a sudden it's just incredible bursts of speed and his body control, and then touches. He's always thinking ahead of the player's going to move in this area, so I know if I cut back, my forward's going to be available in this. It's just phenomenal the way he connects people, and you see defenders kind of swarm to him, and it opens up other players. But even when they just swarm to him, he wiggles his way through and creates an incredible opportunity. He can shoot from anywhere with his left foot. He'll put it on his right foot as well. He's just that guy that has an incredible work rate when he's on the ball, but also when he sees the space, and you just love that he gets kind of that free roll where he can kind of float around and everybody's kind of aware, but it helps shift the defenses in certain positions to help his team. But also, he's got an incredible cast around him too, which helps with Inter Miami. But he is older, but I don't see much slowing down right now. Even if you go back to the last game, scored a PK, but also the second goal that he scored, the game-winning goal against Colorado, was just phenomenal. Two guys closing in on him, cuts it back on his right foot, splits the gap, beats the goalkeeper back post. That is just world-class finishing. And hopefully the fans get to see a little taste of that tonight with RSL leaving with a win.
So how does it work if you're a goaltender against Inter Miami with Leo Messi on the field? I know absolutely nothing about playing the position. How much of your attention has to be quarter my eye? I got to know where he's at all times. Are you just following the ball and the formation and the pass? I mean, give me a sense of trying to keep the ball out of the goal when he and those guys are on the field in front of you.
Yeah, and I think, I'll give some credit to Rafa Cabral, who I absolutely think has been phenomenal since coming over to RSL. It's really positioning and not baiting yourself into trying to think what he's going to do. You've just got to keep your feet. You got to keep the correct positioning because at any moment he could pull the trigger, but also you may think he may slot it one area and he's going to hit it back post for a player coming in. And so if you're trying baiting one way or leaning one way, he's going to wrong foot you, just like defenders as well. So it's really, taking the high percentage save, and if you're in good positioning, you've got good angles, then you can give yourself at least a high percentage save in this. If you start guessing or baiting to a certain area, he's going to slip one in, and that's when you kind of look like with your pants held down when he makes you kind of look silly, because he does that to everybody. So for Rafa, it's really focusing on which way he can probably cut in, which way the defender's kind of supporting him, and then keeping his feet. And he's phenomenal with reaction saves. So I think he's going to come up big if Messi gets free.
For everyone else, you probably grew up at some point with a Messi poster on your wall or playing the FIFA video game and making sure that he's the guy who was piling up all the goals. And now you gotta go slide tackle him. You got to try to keep the ball away from him. What's the right way to approach it when you're going up against someone like him in a game like this one, where your team, it's high stakes, it's early in the season, but your team's off to an excellent start?
Yeah, and I think you said it too there about RSL, off to an excellent start. And I think, it's been building. The beginning of the season didn't really have everybody, had some young guys lifted up, and now it's really kind of lifted all the guys that have come in, the winter signings, even some of the young guys that are in, pretty much year two of starting. We've seen that lift. So the work rate for RSL is incredible from what it was, in prior seasons as a team, as a group, in the way that they're showing up for each other. And so that's going to be a big piece, is if he breaks free in space, how do you get him to a position where, he's not being able to attack the goal, pushing him out wide, making him play off to other players. But, when you dive in, you just see how tight his touches are and how quickly he can get around you. And that's when you're just scrambling as a defensive unit. If he gets around, one of the pivots in Spearings or Caliscan, and Justin Glad has to step out. That means DeAndre Yedlin has to slide in her angle, and then that's opening up the outside. So that's where he is just so smooth when he beats 1-2 players. It just creates so much space for everybody. So, it's really kind of keeping your feet, not making him find that little hole to get in and around you, and try and push him into areas where you get additional support. But, if you're diving in or, reaching on him, he's so strong on the ball and with his body. Even when it looks like he's going to go down with a foul, he ends up just getting through and keep going. And so for RSL, it'll definitely be a tough test, especially when they break out into a counter. They do play a lot of high press, and that's going to be hard as well. If there's turnovers in the midfield, they're immediately down your throat. And so RSL's got to be clean on the ball when they're playing out of the back, because both teams like to play out of the back.
Obviously, you're going to do your best to slow him down, slow his teammates down, but it won't matter that much if you can find the back of the net yourself. And this RSL team's done a really good job of that, especially in these last 3 games. But so far this season, again, unbeaten through 6, 5-1-1. What was the key for them offensively against Miami's defensive formation?
Yeah, and I think for RSL again too, it's been the work rate, and going with meeting with Pablo yesterday at the stadium, we went through the Gilivogi goal and the backtracking from Solans and Gilivogi. Knowing that Diego Luna's kind of caught up, both of them drop back into the channel to win the ball. It's a quick out to Luna, switches the field, and then Solans is running at the defender and opens up for Gilivogi. So, both side defending is going to be huge for RSL. Miami is susceptible to counterattacks. When they push a lot of people up the field. When they high press, they get their mid part up high as well too. And when you see teams be successful, as they break through that, that's when the defense gets a little bit stretched. And that's why it shows. They've given up 16 goals this season in 8 games, so averaging 2 goals a game. They have risk reward. They know that they can go and score, and they try and kind of outscore you. But I think RSL is actually set up really well, the way they've played their formation, to high press to win those balls. But also, if they're backtracking, they can also spring into the counterattack pretty quickly to get in behind that midfield.
Jay Nolly for another minute or two here on the Sean O'Connell Show. RSL Inter Miami tonight at America First Field. Starts at 7:30. I would imagine you want to leave early, get down there, watch the warm-ups. Leo Messi expected to play. He is here in Utah. So when you get to the big picture of what this team is actually capable of in today's MLS, I know it's early in the season, but if you're projecting out in your maybe best case scenario, what do you see this group being able to accomplish?
Yeah, I think this team, definitely has the capability to push into that top 4 when we're talking about a playoff push. I think the beginning part of the season really kind of tailored the way they're going too. They shift the formation, obviously, from last season into preseason and here. And I think the addition too of a few players, and also some, we commonly talk about, Justin Glad is such a pivotal piece in that center back position for what they can do, because attacking wise, there's a lot of times they're 2v2 in the back, with Engel and Glad, or Yedlin and Glad, or Quinton and Glad, and that's because they have the confidence in them. And you have to do that to be able to push forward. So I think RSL getting some of those young guys out, and Solans getting that opportunity with Victor Olatunji having an injury. He's got 5 goals on the season, leading the team in his technically his rookie season. Even knowing that he was going to be a pro a couple years ago, but had a phenomenal year in college last season, came in and has just done great with his opportunity. And now it's kind of hard for Victor to get on the field, but you have him and Hezer Connie, Dylan, Junqua, all these types of players on the bench as well. And Sanabria is going to be on the bench too. So I think the talent is something that has really lifted up this year. They've done a phenomenal job in picking up some players. Gilivogi is incredible. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. He's got 1 goal in the season, probably should have 4 or 5 from his opportunities, and that's only going to continue to happen. And then you got Diego Luna, who's potentially going to be, with the men's national team during the World Cup. So the pieces they have are elevated from last season. And then this formation and then the way the team is playing, I do think that's why they've had such a good start, but also why they can really compete at a higher level against, even Inter Miami tonight. I fully expect this to be a great game, back and forth. Both teams probably high pressing. If you watch the San Diego game, be a little bit like that. But just the commitment from each player and supporting each other in the ways they need to go. It's just been really impressive to start the season.
Who's the best player you ever stoned when you were in goal?
I think so. Luckily for RSL, I know you had Jason Kreitz on earlier. My second year at RSL, we got to play Real Madrid, and I got to play the second half of that. And David Beckham had a free kick that I saved up and over the wall. Robinho had a one-on-one that I saved. Van Nistelrooy and I got into it. So some of those, impactful games where, you're with an MLS team and you get to play, one of the top teams in the world. It's just incredible. Also got to play against Man City when I was with Vancouver when they came off that 2012 epic comeback to win the Premier League at the death. I got to play against that former team and walked off the field with Joe Hart and got his jersey. So luckily I've been able to play against some incredible guys. But Beckham, just the impact that he's had on the league. I was also with DC United when he played his first game for MLS in DC. So got to see some pretty cool things, but I played overseas a little bit as well too, training, but I think that Real Madrid was one of the most stacked teams I've ever seen.
So wait, Beckham never scored on you. That's what I'm hearing?
He did not, but he didn't get many opportunities.
Well, no, that's
in and out of a 1-2,
technicality, Jay.
Score.
That doesn't matter. That's top line on my resume. If I'm you, is Beckham never scored on me. Boom. There it is.
And I have a great picture from that game too of me and him walking off the field with his arm around me, but then also him just about to strike the free kick over the RSL wall and me already leaning that way to go and try and save it.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate your time. Let's get you on again soon, and especially when we get into this World Cup situation. I'd like to pick your brain on that too.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. Appreciate you having me.
Jay Nolly, former RSL goalkeeper and color analyst on the RSL radio broadcasts. It is messy. It's going to get messy down at America First Field. The current get-in price is $503 if you want to go watch Inter Miami and Leo Messi play against a red-hot RSL team. Unbeaten in their last 6. They are 5-1-1 on the season, and they're scoring goals right now.
Yeah,
so
that price just to be able to sit in your car on State Street outside the stadium, by the way. No.
That's if you want to go park at that weird lot that used to be a trailer park. Right off of 90th South, and you can hear the stadium announcer mention Leo Messi.
You can hear the roar of the crowd.
I put the poll question out, and I appreciate the responses I'm getting. Again, 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports if you want to vote on the poll itself. You get a free ticket, but you can only attend one. If you attend this one, you got to skip the other 2 this year. Leo Messi tonight, Utah Mammoth in their first ever home playoff game on Friday, or this year's Holy War, which is, of course, the best event on the sports calendar in our state every single year. And, by the way, this is the first one where Morgan Scally and Kalani Sitake will be going at it. Morgan Scally's first ever head coaching opportunity in the Holy War. I mean, there's firsts all over the place. In Messi's case, and we got a couple of texts reflecting this, but Jeff said exactly this. The Utah Mammoth playoff game feels like the biggest game in the state. Holy War seems like the biggest national implication. Messi and Sandy is the biggest worldwide implication. Hard to argue with that. People in Argentina have no interest in what's going on in the BYU Utah football game. Although, I guess I'm probably underestimating the impact of missionary work down there in Argentina. There might be some in Argentina that care, but more care about Messi.
Yeah, there's There's people in Argentina that have heard of Utah. We'll just put it that way.
Argentine NHL players. Let's see if we've had those.
Oh.
There are no players born in Argentina currently playing in the National Hockey League.
I wonder if there've ever been any.
I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna have to dig into this. Things you didn't think you'd be wondering about on a radio show.
I've done this because, you know, I served my mission in Hungary, so I've done this. Like, how many Hungarians have played NBA hockey? I thought maybe some in hockey, but not really any.
Okay,
so that's interesting.
So here's what I just did. All right, I clicked on a link. The top 10 Argentinian hockey players. Guess what sport they play? Field hockey.
Field hockey.
Not one of them are ice hockey
It's
players.
got to be grass.
I
Soccer
think,
or field hockey?
I think it's safe to say that down on the Pampas of Argentina, there's not a lot of interest in the Utah Mammoth game. All right, got to take a break here. AJ DeBonsa has teased a major announcement. What will he be announcing? We'll discuss it next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN said, oh, wait. I forgot to give away our free round of golf to the Festival of Tees. 877-353-0700. Who is RSL's current leading goal scorer in this young season? If you know the answer to that, 877-353-0700. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I mentioned him by name when we talked to Jason Kreis. If you know that answer, we will give you a free round of golf at Sun Hills. 3 minutes from now, we'll be talking AJ DeBonsa. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. You want to talk about two tastes that go great together? Beer and hockey. How about this? Awesome news. If you're a fan of beer and you're a fan of hockey, our friends at Epic Brewing just finished a major bar expansion. They now have an outdoor patio, beer on tap, liquor and wine available, and a brand new space for you to enjoy. This Friday, check out the new Epic Brewing Bar and the new Epic Experience. They'll be giving away Epic-branded hockey pucks all day, a mammoth watch party for all the upcoming playoff games, and, of course, a great place to pregame on Friday before the first-ever playoff game at the Delta Center. First-ever NHL playoff game at the Delta Center. ESPN 700 and The Drive with Spence Checketts are going to be broadcasting from 2 to about 5:30. Also, while you're there, the Utah Hip Check Ice Lager, 7.5% Imperial Lager. It's celebrating NHL playoff hockey in Utah. Boom! Got to be 21. That is epic. EpicBrewing.com for more details. AJ DeBonsa, you're not going to fool us. All right? I saw your little tweet, AJ. He says he's got big news tomorrow at 9:45 a.m. And then he's going on Instagram Live right after that, apparently. AJ, we know what this is, okay? This is an opportunity for you to get people to stream, to get people to follow you, and you're not going to fool me into thinking that it's anything but an NHL draft NHL.
He's
an
playing
NBA
hockey. That would be very surprising.
If it is an NHL draft declaration from AJ DeBonsa, that will surprise some people.
I love Ryan Smith so much that I will play for his hockey team.
We're working something out. It's going to be crazy. All right? Lowry Markkanen, AJ DeBonsa.
It's a trade.
To the Utah Mammoth. For Tanev and Spicy Tuna. We're going to see what he looks like. Actually, I know exactly the kind of basketball player Spicy Tuna is. Because I am that guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, is he a football player who plays basketball, that type of guy?
You know the ones. Just fouling everybody. Terrible at shooting.
Good
terrible at dribbling.
Though.
Good rebounders. Decent defenders. But
yeah, because that's just effort.
Yeah.
You don't really need a whole lot of skill to go grab the ball and to harass people on defense.
Yes. He says, also, AJ DeBonsa, first of all, major faux pas. This is maybe the first issue I'm taking with AJ. He's been a remarkable representative of all things good in this weird and somewhat poisonous process. Like, AJ has kind of risen above it, right? He stays focused talks about his parents, the leadership. He talks about his family. He talks about his faith. He talks about how grateful he is to have the opportunities that he's got. I'm incredibly impressed with AJ. Obviously, as a player, he's massively impressive. This is the first grievance I'm going to air with you, AJ. He says, big news tomorrow, 11:45 a.m. Eastern Time. Instagram Live, noon Eastern Time. Nope. You can't. You're a Mountain Time guy. You can't announce things Eastern Time.
I know. I thought the same thing.
You can't do it in Don't pander to the East Coast mafia. Don't pander to big media on the East Coast.
Hey, you better put it in Eastern Time, okay?
11:45 a.m. Eastern Time with no mention. I think the last time we saw him publicly, he was on the West Coast at a Laker game.
Yeah. Hey, AJ, if you know what's good for you, you're going to announce this in Eastern Time, okay? You're going to put it in Eastern Time.
I didn't literally mean the mafia. He says big news tomorrow. By the way, if BYU can somehow pull this off and somehow get him to stay, it is the single most impressive feat in recruitment in the history of college sports.
I think his mom deserves an NIL deal from BYU if that happens.
I mean, look, there are now rules in place, or a lack of rules in place, that if they wanted to, BYU could pay him whatever he was going to make his NBA year. But the thing that they could not make up for is the year lost with his NBA contracts. Because the quicker you get into the NBA, the sooner you qualify for the Supermax extension. And he's going to be in that group that is approaching the big B, $1 billion of basketball salary. Victor Wembanyama is probably going to be the first one. We'll talk about him in our daily dump a little bit later. Got to take another break because our guy Adrian Denny is here for Between the Pipes. You got a playoff win. You've got playoff hockey coming to the Delta Center on Friday. Everything's coming up Mammoth, baby. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Time for Between the Pipes. Adrian Denny, Utah Mammoth insider, Brought to you by Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, and our friends over at Aladdin Industries, your Utah Velux dealer. Adrian, Denny, and I are both wearing hockey gear today. Yours happens to be Stanley Cup playoff Utah Mammoth gear. Excellent, fresh threads, because that's exactly what we're in right now, the Stanley Cup playoffs. How are you?
Good, buddy. Had a fun Tuesday night watching the game. I know everybody did. Coming back home with the split. It's all we ever wanted, right?
It's all we wanted.
When you're the road team, when you're the road team, it's so easy. You go in, you lose the first game. You're like, well, we just want to split anyway.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Mammoth able to
We're okay with the split.
pull it through. And then if you come back down 2-0, it's like, well, it's not a series till somebody loses the game at home. Gotcha. But Mammoth much happier that the series is 1-1. Got to win 3 of 5 now instead of 4 of 5.
Okay. I tried to articulate this when we started the show today. The response from the Mammoth after, quite frankly, being dominated physically in period 3 of game 1, I was asking the question, how do you dial back that, like playing Vegas's game? How do you avoid them playing so aggressively to their strengths? And the easiest answer was, well, lean into your own speed a little bit, try to get some more spacing. Easier said than done. And it felt like the Mammoth did a much better job of that in game 2. Not just in the first and second period, but obviously throughout. And then when you've got Dylan Gunther going 194 feet or whatever it was, and you get Cooley putting it away on a rebound, that was awesome to salt this game away. But rewinding to the response from the Mammoth, what'd you think? What'd you like?
In the first period, I was a little concerned. Vegas scores on their first power play, just like they did on Sunday to tie up the game. They drew 3 of the 4 power plays in the period. They had the puck in the Utah defensive zone for almost 3 more minutes in the first period. And head coach Andre Cherney was talking to our own Sarah Merrifield at the under 10 timeout in the first. And he's like, we just got to calm down. We just have to relax here. We have to stop worrying about them wanting to impose a physical presence. And Utah was able to somehow, as they were, pinned into their zone and taking penalties, got some saves from Karel Vejmelka. They were able to keep it a 1-0 game. And then they were able to tie it in a period where they didn't generate any offense. 11 shot attempts in the first period, tied for the fewest in a period this year. And Mackenzie Weegar threw one in the net, bounced off of Carter Hart, which is another story. Stuff shouldn't be bouncing off of the goalies in the NHL, right? He's had 2 pucks bounce off of him, off of his D and into the net, and that's how the Mammoth have scored, which brings up the point. Okay, now, if we could get a few more bodies in front, we could get a few more goals like that. But OC, the Mammoth were able to keep that game 1-0, and that was the biggest part of the game because it felt like it was 2-0 or more. The way the penalties were coming and the way Vegas was heavy in the Utah zone. And coming out to start the second, Mammoth able to kind of start from scratch, and they took over the game. They took the lead, lasted for 62 seconds, but they stayed in control. And I'm watching that game in the third period. I'm like, they're doing everything right. Just got to get a goal. You need something to happen to push this game over the top. You're going to have a good second and third period in game 2, a good first and second period in game 1. You're going to be down 2-0, outplaying them in 4 of the 6 periods. So they were able to exploit that speed on Vegas. They out-hit Vegas. That was kind of the narrative around hockey after the game on Sunday. Everybody's talking about the physicality in the Vegas-Utah series, but the series didn't have any more hits than really any other game in the playoffs outside of Edmonton-Anaheim.
Well, it's just the disparity, right?
Yeah. It had the plus 20 for Vegas, which Utah was 10 above their season average on Sunday. But, it's just kind of the emotion, the passion kind of spilled over. And the Mammoth in the first period on Tuesday might have still been thinking about that. But, Bear had a plan to get his guys calmed down, get them back on their game. And I really feel that Utah is the better team here in just about every category. Goaltending, defensemen are solid. You've got more speed and skill than them. They've got a good top line that they've been mixing around. Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, Mitch Martin. But I really believe Utah's got a better constructed roster. It just comes down to, can you win those little key moment battles? And the Mammoth were close to winning 2 of the 3 periods in the first 2 games and coming home down 2-0, but they just kept going. And when they took that lead in the 3rd period, they kept playing the same game. They kept the pressure on. The final 90 seconds, they did a great job. Kevin Stellan on Jack Eichel, keeping Vegas to the outside. Nick Schmaltz and Logan Cooley were huge in the D zone as well. Big save from Vejmelka to seal it, but coming back 1-1, and I think feeling pretty good. See, my question was, after game 1, Vegas is the 4th oldest team in the league. Can they do that against Utah for a complete series?
Well,
and
fair question to ask. And then, you already highlighted the question that was a major part of the conversation. Like, are the Mammoth going to get stuck in this Vegas type game? This is playoff hockey. It's going to be this physical, and you're going to get pinned against the boards, and you're going to get checked everywhere you go. And they just were better in this game. And you didn't. If a game's going to be physical, great. I think the Mammoth can play a physical brand. Maybe they don't have the same size as some of these other Western Conference playoff teams, but you can't let it be so one-sided as it was late in game 1. And clearly they took that into account. And I think what you just mentioned with Coach Bear saying, you got to relax, not overthinking it. Easier said than done in that situation. I had some favorites and some least favorites in this game. The end of the first period, beginning of the second period, penalty kill, where the Mammoth needed to get better in that area. It's been inconsistent as of late. Not only did they not give up a goal there, they weren't giving up shots in that penalty kill. That was massive. And then a least favorite is, and it's happened too many times this year, and maybe there's an answer for it. Maybe it's just what we've talked about in the past. It's just, letting your foot off the gas pedal. But you already mentioned this. You take a lead and it lasts for 62 seconds. You give up the responding goal so quickly. And that's happened a dozen times throughout the course of the season. You don't want to see it happening in playoff hockey.
Especially how that happened. You're in your D zone. Mikhail Sergachev, John Marino. Like, I can describe it on the radio what you want to do. D to D out. Not D to D to D to D to D to D to D. Flip it to the neutral zone.
Sure.
Right. Put some spin on the pass. Get it out. Like, and they turned it over. Vegas picked it up and walked right in and tied it up.
The walked right in was the most aggravating part for me. Barbashev's an awesome player.
Yeah.
But you don't let Barbashev weave through. This is not Sidney Crosby. This is not Connor McDavid. When we saw that happen against the Edmonton Oilers a couple times, you're just like, all right, best player in the world. Barbashev, good for you. Don't let him do that to you. When it's 3-on-1, you should be taking the puck away and sending it back up ice.
For me, it's not like Vegas had a great response shift. Utah had the puck and didn't get it out of trouble. So you look at that, but they were able to get it back and rolling. You talk about special teams. They lost the special teams battle in the game because of the power play goal they gave up. They went 0 for 4 on the power play, but they had a franchise record 12 shots on the power play. I think we could see, okay, body of work. Power play's back and clicking like it was at the end of the regular season when they set a franchise record in consecutive games with a power play goal. PK, I know nobody remembers this. PK in November, December had some stretches where they're top 5, top 10. That's what it looked like. They kind of got that back. And
we've grown to accept the peaks and valleys of that. We had Nick Olczyk on, and we talked about some of the stretches that they've been through with that, right? In both power play and in penalty kill, they've kind of gone up and down. And the cliche is always, well, make sure you're playing your best when it matters most. And if you have a bad final couple of weeks of penalty kill of the regular season, fine. If you're getting it figured out now in game 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, yes, I will accept that wholeheartedly. And that's what it looked like, especially in that second period.
Which is huge because that's one way Vegas can beat Utah. They were the only team in the NHL in the regular season that are top 7 power play, top 7 penalty kill. And while they got that early one, Utah, when it was, it was still a little physical, emotional, chippy in the first period, Bama took 1 penalty the rest of the game in periods 2 and 3 and drew 3 power plays. So another way that they were just kind of able to tilt the ice and take control of the contest. They allowed 11 shots final 2 periods of the game. There's just really nothing outside of the gosh, I can just hear coaches throughout my career watching that and what Utah did to give D to D and out. I could hear that stuff in my sleep on what you wanted to do with that puck, and 2 veteran D didn't do it, but they pushed forward and were able to get that next goal from Cooley. That's what I'm thinking in the third period. They just needed a goal. They're in so smooth control of this game. They just need a goal. So they got it, and they used their speed to get it, and there wasn't a golden night in sight when Logan Cooley hammered in that third chance. That Dylan Gunther got the first 2 on that speed burst up ahead with Yamamoto on a perfect tape-to-tape pass.
The decision to take McBain out and put Tuna back in, was that a health thing for McBain? Was that strategic to try to see if you could get Liam O'Brien to get under the skin of some of the Vegas Knights? Where did that decision come from?
Yeah, I don't think Jack McBain was quite 100%. He went on Sunday. That was a huge surprise. He didn't skate in morning skate. He hadn't been at practice, and then he shows up in warm-ups, and he's not taking line rushes with regular forwards. He's out there. He looks like an extra, just kind of, going out for a twirl just to test it a little bit. So he plays. He played about 9 minutes, which is below his average, and didn't look quite like he does when he's feeling good. So that's what I believe that was in game 2. So they pop in O'Brien, who led the way with 5 hits, blocked 2 shots, added that usual energy that he did during the regular season. At one point during the year, it was late in the season. The updated numbers is probably one more win than this, but Utah was 6-2-1 when he had been inserted into the lineup after not playing the game before. So he was a big insertion, and they so wanted Jack McBain to be on the ice, but didn't look like it was quite 100% Sunday.
Plenty left to play in this series, and you got to anticipate all possibilities, but Logan Cooley right now looks like he's a dude ready for playoff hockey.
I look at Logan Cooley, and I think you could stereotype him because he's clean cut. He's got a nice smile.
Voluntarily or not, by the way. He might not be able to be anything but he might.
Yes.
He might not be capable of being anything but clean cut with the facial hair.
You see how he skates, and you could typecast him, and he's a skill guy that doesn't like to get hit. And Nick Dowd from Vegas, did you see it after the game Sunday?
Oh my gosh.
Some threats and stuff like that. I thought it was hilarious.
Nick Dowd, relax. You're almost old enough to be his dad. Don't talk to him that way. All right.
I thought it was hilarious. So he threatens Logan Cooley's life after the game on Sunday,
colorfully
on the ice. Yeah, and then he tripped up Cooley in the second period. The Mammoth got a power play. And I'm thinking that's not going to do it, buddy. Got to do something more than that. But Logan Cooley's a pit bull. Like he doesn't care. He's not afraid to get hit. Like he will do whatever it takes. So if you watch him and you see how fast he is and how skilled he is, and he's clean cut and he looks nice, he's a dog. And he's been maybe Utah's best player in the postseason so far. How about this, OC? This took some research, which I didn't do. This is hard to believe. Youngest American in NHL history to score a playoff goal in his first 2 games. Clayton Keller in the Edmonton bubble in 2020 was the previous youngest at 22.
Keller's been quiet in the first 2 games. What do they need from him?
Do you know what? Vegas has done a great job of zeroing in on that line of Keller, Schmaltz, and Krause. And it doesn't help our conversation today, OC. But this afternoon, I'm gonna watch their shifts, and because that clearly, right, top 10 line in the NHL. Of course, Vegas is going to go into the series. Well, we've got to shut them down. We've got to take away, their space. We got to keep them to the outside. We don't want them to possess the puck. So for me, that is going into a playoff series and saying those guys are our number one thing that we have to make sure doesn't beat us. And so now you've got 2 games to go back and try and counterpunch that. But Vegas is a really good team defensively of just kind of clogging up space because they're bigger. They do a great job on their goalie, who I think is extremely compromised. The rebounds that he lets up. But it doesn't matter because they're right there to clear the pucks away. And Utah, in only a few instances, has had bodies in front to knock a puck home. Yesterday, on one puck that he covered up and didn't give up a bounty rebound on, Carconi and Kerfoot were out in front, right? So if I think going into games 3 and 4, that's going to be one thing that Utah continues to work on, and that's penetrating the Vegas zone to get, for more of those second chance situations, because the rebounds have been very plentiful and they're not bad bounces. Goalies can't give up rebounds that go off the head of their defenseman and embarrass him. The poor kid, Caden Korsak, second career playoff game. He's worked with John Tortorella for 3 weeks. Like, can you imagine? Puck bounces off of your face and goes into the back of the net.
Their defensemen, well, not just defensemen, there's a lot of guys in Vegas Knights sweaters that are they're taking pucks to the shin, trying to glove it themselves, to the chest. Hannafin had to leave, had to go to the dressing room in the game. I mean, nicked out it was in the 4-on-3 that then became the 5-on-4 power play. I mean, he ate one that would have been a goal.
Yeah.
They're doing a great job in front of their goaltender.
They do a phenomenal job. And going into the series, that was one of my things. Vegas is so good defensively. Can they make it not matter? Can he'll make every goalie in the NHL makes the first save and then they take care of it. Can they make it not matter? And in the first 2 games, they've done a pretty good job of it. His numbers look pretty decent. But if you watch the body of work, I think you're like, okay, if we can get to him for a second chance or 2, that's going to be another goal or 2.
All right, now let's turn the page to Friday. The first ever home playoff game. We started the show today. I think this is going to be one of the best sports moments we've ever had in the state of Utah. Obviously, we all want to win, and the most important thing in this series is to try to advance to the next series. I think, the team has always believed it. I think what we saw from game 2 probably has more fans thinking that's a possible outcome or a more likely outcome. And sold-out show on Friday, first ever. I've already asked you what you think it's going to be like. Now it's the next game. What's it going to be like?
On a Friday night, it's going to be bananas. I mean, we know what Vegas does at the T-Mobile Arena, right? I think if we're going to separate ourselves and take Utah out of the equation, are you talking about anybody other than Vegas when you talk about a playoff atmosphere in the NHL and in an entertainment capital of the world that's buzzing and electric? And I think the Utah fans did a great job of going down there and being loud, and it's pretty cool. You got your closest regional rival that you're playing in playoffs for the first round, Salt Lake, and Vegas, especially. It seems like those of us in Utah, like soccer tournaments, like there's always something in Vegas that we're in Vegas or St. George, or if we're in St. George, we go to Vegas for for a day.
The St. George Mesquite Vegas trip that everyone's done 100 times.
So you've got that. So Utah, first 2 games, did a great job in Mountain Blue. You could hear some chants. You know, you kind of got under the skin of the Vegas fans, and now you know you're going to have some Vegas fans here because that's just going to be how it is. So that's challenge for the Mammoth fans. You know it's going to be electric. You know it's going to be nuts. There's going to be a party pregame on the CE Plaza. So when you come inside, take it to another level and welcome your Vegas counterparts and be a lot louder than them. Don't let them get on national TV in your building.
What are we going to end up calling this rivalry? Because I'm calling it now. This is going to develop naturally. We're not going to force feed it, but we are kind of. And this is a rivalry developing. And when Utah wins this series over a team that already has a cup and has been kind of the gold standard of expansion franchises and new franchises, not only in the NHL, but in professional sports, the geographic proximity, I mean, all of it can create a nice little rivalry here. What are we going to call this thing?
Gosh.
Saints and Sinners is very obvious, but it's, you know, you lean into the culture in both places. Yeah. It's not the most creative thing. We got to brainstorm. We got to come up with something.
Mike on the radio has been calling it the I-15 series just as a placeholder.
Yeah, okay. That's a good placeholder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These 2 teams are just the exact opposite, too. You got one team that's old. You got one team that's young and really fast. The other team, old, physical, fast, spunky, clean cut. Don't care.
I mean, we'll come up with something.
Yeah.
877-353-0700 if you have a good name. We might have to run an official contest where we give something away for this.
Even John Tortorella and Bear, 2 exact opposites, the two head coaches. Did you see Bear got on Twitter after the game last night?
That was the coolest. Am I too late? He tweets once a year.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He's the best.
The home ice at the end of the season, they play better away than they did on home ice. Any thoughts on that?
I think winning in the playoffs, you're going back to some of the lessons that you learned in the first half of this season last year in terms of, you know, playing with a lead, winning at home. And we'll see if they've kind of shaken 100% in a playoff atmosphere, winning at home and not letting the moment overtake them because they want to take that show that's already there and kick it to another level. I think that they're at a point as a group where they've learned, okay, Delta Center's crazy and we want it to get crazier, but we still have to stay within ourselves, right? Because that's why they've been so successful on the road, because they've been simple. They've just gone out and done it. They've not had that in the back of their heads. Oh, this town is nuts. They love us, and this is the best atmosphere in the NHL. We have to really impress them now.
Yeah.
But I think they could be beyond that.
The puck drops at 7:30 on Friday at the Delta Center, the first ever NHL playoff game in the state of Utah, and your Utah Mammoth come back tied in the series 1-1. Real quick before I let you go, anything around the entire NHL Stanley Cup playoff surprising you so far in the early goings?
Do you know what, OC? So you have Buffalo and Boston in the East. You got the Atlantic Division champions and the second wild card. And Buffalo came out of nowhere, first playoff appearance since 2011. Boston kind of retooled. Jeremy Swayman, their goalie, had a great year. That's been my, okay, Boston's winning that series from game one. And they've led in both games. Buffalo came back, 4 goals in 6 minutes Sunday, but Boston, another kind of tape-to-tape performance. That would be one upset series that I've got. I can't get enough of Minnesota-Dallas in the Central Division. Minnesota won the first game 6-1. Dallas countered, so they're 1-1. That's got to be Game 7 triple overtime for that series. Two teams, 100-plus points, meeting in the first round. How about Colorado, LA? 2-2-1 games that they've played so far.
I lied. I do have one more thing. Utah's own homegrown Stanley Cup champion, Trevor Lewis, made his retirement official. He did not play this season in the NHL, but he's before it was cool, before hockey was cool in Utah, he was the guy who battled his way onto a Kings roster for 2 Stanley Cup championships. Massively impactful as a grassroots beginning of hockey here, and he's done.
Cottonwood Heights went to Brighton High before he left to play in the USHL. First-round draft pick, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. But for Trevor Lewis, he's always come back. He brought the Stanley Cup to the Mavericks Center in 2012. He brought it to the state capitol in 2014. He's always had Utah front of mind, and he's been around this year. We've had him on our broadcast on Hockey Night in Utah on the Nashcast several times this year, but he's just your hometown boy.
He's the hometown guy.
Yeah, and he couldn't be any more all in on Utah. So
we're gonna have more homegrown Stanley Cup champs as the years progress, but he's the guy who kind of starts it.
Love Trevor. Trevor.
Congrats to him on a great career.
Do you want a small town Utah hockey story?
Yeah.
So we were having Trevor on the Nashcast in October. One of our Hockey Night in Utah, podcasts, and our boss sends in the group text, "Does anyone have Trevor Lewis's dad's phone number?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I've got his dad Randy. I've got his phone number right here." I texted it. Like, it's like, how cool is that? That
pretty cool.
NHL in Utah. We've got the Mammoth second year, and we're getting Trevor on the Nashcast, and my boss is like, he's like, "Does anyone have to have Trevor's dad's phone number?" It's like, "Oh yeah, Randy, got it right here in my phone. Here you go, boss."
Totally normal. That's Adrian Denny. Between the Pipes is brought to you by our friends over at Aladdin Industries, your Utah Velux dealer, and, of course, Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. We'll see you on Friday night.
Can't wait, man. See you then.
Daily Dump, we had to move it because we had a jam-packed hour number 2, so that's coming next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Time for the Daily Dump. Look for the truck with the duck to handle all of your plumbing and HVAC needs. Go to valleyplumbing.com. You can make an appointment right there. You don't even have to pick up the phone. They have a chat feature. You can set your appointment. That's how I did it when I had a little leak. And they handled it same day, perfectly executed, affordable price. The truck with the duck, Valley Plumbing, brings you the Daily Dump. Tomorrow, we have the first round of the NFL draft right here on ESPN 700. We've got the entire draft right here on our airwaves. We are your home for the draft. And you won't hear about this on day one because, well, for obvious reasons, but the NFL has sold the number 57 pick. It is now being sponsored by the Heinz Company, and they're going to make this a thing moving forward, where Devin Hester, who's the best number 57 overall pick in the history of the NFL, is going to present the number 57 pick with a lifetime supply of ketchup, with a ketchup red Mr. 57 suit jacket, and of course, they'll be the 57th pick, so their NFL career starts. Devin Hester handing out the number 57 red ketchup red jacket.
By the way, starting this in Pittsburgh, where that used to be Heinz Field, is perfect marketing.
Kind of weird that they're not doing Heinz 57 sauce; they're doing ketchup instead.
I was gonna say, like, if the 57 is the number, I mean, ketchup is what we know Heinz for, so sure. But also, there should be some Heinz 57 sauce in there too.
And the folks at Barstool actually put together a great list of ways that you could sell certain picks. Round 1, pick 14. I don't know what Fortnite has to do with 14, but apparently it does. Player becomes their own thing on Fortnite. Okay. Pick 21, Las Vegas, one hand of blackjack to double your rookie contract. That's awesome. It would be a great idea. Round 2, pick 4. That's number 36 overall. The entire Wu-Tang Clan presents the pick. Okay, stop. The 64th pick overall, round 2, pick 32. Nintendo sponsors pick 64, and you get a life-size Mario Kart. We could do the numerology on all this stuff, man.
Yeah.
Every company that has a number associated with them at all should be sponsoring the corresponding pick in the NFL draft.
Do you like these being sold, though, starting with, of course, 57?
Yes, I do. And I'll tell you why. Because it is a non-sporting sporting event. It is just a show. Throw in as much advertisement, revenue, whatever's helping the players. I don't know if a lifetime supply of ketchup really gets me going. But, you know, if you're the 66th pick overall, Phillips 66 now gives you a lifetime worth of gasoline. Let's go.
Absolutely. I don't want to be drafted in the first round if that's one of the prizes.
That's a real prize. Even if it's a year's worth, that's a real prize.
You know what?
Can buy that big old gas guzzler car.
Hey, Mr. Agent Man, will you please put it? I'm a guaranteed first round pick. Will you please put out some kind of smoke screens that says "Don't touch me" till is 66 second round or third round?
That would be the third round.
Till early third round, please. I think I've got a knee injury.
Okay.
That just showed up on scans or
Hold
something.
on. Pick number 4. That is Delta. Delta Airlines. Pick number 4 sponsors the player, gives them, you know, like the Delta Gold card where you just get to show the pilot and you're on the plane. I don't think that even exists, but it'd be cool if it did.
Gives you wings so you can sit in the cockpit whenever you want.
Sell them all, baby. Sell all the picks. As long as the player gets something good out of it, not just Roger Goodell making more money for himself.
The only thing, and I'm not too concerned about this because, as you said, it's not like a game where, as far as how long the draft takes doesn't matter near as much to me as how long a game takes, right? But I don't want, if I don't want too many like, okay, we're going to take 5 minutes to appease this sponsor because we decided to sell this pick to Heinz this year and whatever else. I don't know that I want that many of those interruptions, but I guess we get those kind of interruptions without these sponsorships all the time, particularly with the NFL draft, so maybe it won't make a difference.
This next story here in the Daily Dump makes me feel not so bad about the whole Murph thing that I went through with Utah football. Did you see this from Jaguars camp?
Yeah.
So Trevor Lawrence, I don't know how it came up, but Travis Etienne, they were talking about how long Trevor Lawrence has known Travis Etienne. They both went to Clemson, obviously. And all of us have been saying Travis Etienne's name the wrong way. That's not how you pronounce it. This is the Tyrod Taylor situation all over again. His name is Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, I missed the Tyrod Taylor announcement.
You know who else we're wrong on all the time? Our very own Karol Vejmelka.
Yeah.
Have you heard when he says his own name? What he says?
Does he pronounce the J?
He says Vejmelka.
Vej.
He says the J.
Vejmelka.
We're supposed to call him Vejmelka.
And hence veggie. I always just thought because we've said Vejmelka.
Well, it's spelled veggie, so like it would make more sense.
I always thought it was the spelling,
Yeah.
but it's veggie.
I was like, when they do the introductions and they say their own names, he says the J, Veg. Tyrod Taylor just went with it when everyone called him Tyrod. His mom calls him Tyrod. That's who gave him the name.
Or it's like
remember Fisenko? Kirilo Fisenko?
Yeah.
Same thing. Kirilo. He would say Kirilo Fisenko.
Kirilo.
And we all said Kirilo.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit of that, not in the case of Travis Etienne, but in the case of these European players, it's just like it's us being Americans trying to pronounce it.
Yes.
It's easy
This
way.
happens with Polynesian names all the time. I remember, you remember Jason Fanica? So in the phonetic spelling in the pronunciation guide game program, they did it wrong. They put Fanaika, right? So they were like on the broadcast, even Bill would be trying to honor what he thought was the correct pronunciation, because it's like a subtle. It's a Fanaika. It's like It's not. So it sounds like Fanaika, right, when you actually say it. But everyone was going Fanaika, and it drove me nuts because I grew up with Fanaikas, and I was like, that's not how you say their name.
Yeah.
And then I asked him to his face deliberately. I'm like, Jason, this is like game 8. How do you want us to say your name? He's like, however you want. I'm like, no. How do you want it to be said? And players just get to that point where it's like, if you're just going to butcher it, fine. I don't care. And that's what Travis Etienne.
Yeah.
You say it the French way, which, as much as we anglicize things, it ends up sounding more like Etienne.
Yeah.
Etienne.
It's Etienne.
Etienne.
It's not
and it's not Etienne.
Yeah, it's not like it's almost 2 syllables instead of 3.
Etienne. And you probably gotta you have to make a hand motion and make your face look funny. Travis Etienne. But that's how the correct way to say his name. His friend from college, well, they went to the same college. He was like, yeah, I don't know you're supposed to say it that way. I've been calling him Etienne for 8 years.
What did he say? He said I got there a year after he did, and so that's how everyone was saying it.
Exactly, which is when people start calling you Murph and you've only met like 4 people and then everyone hears Murph, they're just like, oh yeah, it's like if someone calls you James, I'm like, his name must be James. That's what happened with Travis Etienne. He was a great player, so it doesn't make me feel so bad about.
I didn't know that Murph followed you to Weber State until recently.
Yeah,
I'm like, no way. I thought it was just, it's not an E sound, it's an A sound, but it's not really that.
I don't think you can't unring the bell now. I don't think you can go back.
It's still going to be ETN in a lot of places. It's like Dirk Nowitzki. For the first couple years of his career, people were pronouncing the W like we do in English.
Nowitzki.
Even though he's German, and people should know that W's make a V sound in German. But anyway, there was a lot of Nowitzkis in his first couple of years. it was by like 2010, I was still hearing podunk broadcasters. I really love Dirk Nowitzki. I'm like, this guy's an MVP. This guy is gonna be a
Right.
Hall of Famer, and it's Nowitzki. You should know that.
Victor Wembanyama left Game 2 of the Blazers Spurs with a concussion. Big tree fall hard, man. That's scary. When you got 7'5" going down, that's a long lever. Looked like he hit his chin. I'm surprised he didn't break any teeth, but concussion protocol means, he could be out until Game 7 of this series if it goes that long.
Yeah, so Dan Patrick had Brian Windhorst on the show just for extra context here. He asked him, what's the difference between NFL and NBA concussion protocol? And Windhorst said, NBA, a lot of the checklist only has to be checked off within the first 24 hours. Well, NFL, it's over a couple-day process, right?
Which, I mean, for obvious reasons, the contact in the NFL makes more sense to be cautious about.
So he technically could be back by Game 3, but the way he fell, the way he hit the floor, I would not be surprised if he's not back for a couple of games. They are in the only window of the series where they have more than one day off. So this is kind of fortunate timing for Wemby in that regard, and the Spurs in that regard, but no guarantee he plays. Did you see
the Blazers are going to lose a draft pick for hurting Victor Wembanyama because the NBA needs him to be available at all times?
Did you see VJ Edgecombe? Historic night, 30 points, 10 boards. He's, by the way, 6'4", and he's 30 and 10 game. Tim Duncan, who was over 7 feet tall, only other rookie to have that kind of stat line in NBA history.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
All right, got to take a quick one here. We'll come back and give away a family 4-pack to Lagoon. The Funnel Cake Festival is happening this weekend. We've got a 4-pack of tickets to the Funnel Cake Festival at Lagoon if you can answer a trivia question next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Final segment on the Sean O'Connell Show, brought to you by our friends at Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. Locally manufactured, locally warranted, locally installed. Everything is owned under the same roof at advancedwindows.com, which means there's no middleman, there's no runaround, there's no, hey, that's not our problem, that's the installer's problem, or the installer telling you, no, that's a manufacturer's problem. And by the way, you're probably not going to have any significant problems because the attention to detail from start to finish on the whole process is at the highest level. That's Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, and Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. A family 4-pack of Lagoon passes for the Funnel Cake Festival happening this weekend. Utah Mammoth won 3-2 last night. They come back to the Delta Center on Friday, tied 1-1 in their series against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Who scored the first goal for the Utah Mammoth in the game last night? 877-353-0700. No crosstalk today. Spence is on location at Beer Bar, a great place for you to pregame, get yourself ready for Messi night down in Sandy. Leo Messi and Inter Miami are taking on a red-hot RSL squad. Tickets are hard to come by unless you've got a bunch of fat cash laying around. It is probably the only time that the global icon Lionel Messi is going to be playing in Salt Lake City, and you've got an opportunity to go down and see it tonight at America First Field.
And remember, kids, it's Messi Day and Messi night, so go ahead, just go crazy, make all kinds of messes, just for today.
James he cannot resist a good pun. He can't. It's against his genetic code to leave a pun sitting out there.
I will say this: now that I am a dad, part of me was fighting against even saying that. Hey, go ahead and make a mess, because now I'm a dad. I'm like, no, don't make a mess. I got to clean that up.
Yeah, you just.
So now
we do not endorse James
backfire.
Peterson's advice to all the children out there to be messy on Messi night. In any case, enjoy yourselves. Stay tuned for the drive. Let's do the Sean O'Connell Show again tomorrow. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.